Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Over the Boards podcast. Beautiful Friday night tonight as we're recording, and just before we get onto it, I just want to say thank you to everybody who listened to the first episode. We got lots of positive feedback, and it's very appreciated. Now, Tampa Bay, it looks like they're pointing themselves in the right direction. We'll start hot. Tampa Bay signs point to a beautiful bridge deal. They got 3 years out of him at a 6.75 AAV. It's a nice little cheap contract for the kid. 3 years down the road, he's going to probably sign that big ticket after some of those guys are going to move out of there. Hopefully he wins the Stanley Cup. I think that's the idea. That's what they told him to get him to stay. I would have to assume if you're going to sign that kind of money, even in a cap space situation like that, you've got to say, hey, I have a chance to win, and this is what it takes, and that's what I'm assuming he did. But, in the future, if they don't win a cup, he's still getting paid $6.7 million. So, can't really complain about that one. Laine also today signed a bridge deal as well. He didn't go for the 3, he went for the 2. It's all he could get out of Winnipeg. He signs for a 2-year at the same AAV. Up front, it's $6 million just this year, and the rest will be paid next year. Laine is, he was the question mark all year. People were talking about Rantanen and Point and Marner. And Laine was the most confusing. He's technically a 30-goal scorer all 3 years of his career, even though last year he had 12 goals in the last 70 games. If you want to still break it down, he was still technically a 30-goal scorer, and at one point, he was the next Alex Ovechkin. So, signing him is a tricky situation. You don't want to go an 8-year contract at $9 million AAV, and then 4 years into it, he's not who he was supposed to be. Or it could go the other way. You could sign that contract and he scores 50 goals for the next 10 years on. So, you never know with guys. With the way that RFAs are going now with guys like Mitch Marner and all that, you're not paying how it used to be where you pay for what a player did and their reputation. You're paying for what they could be. And I personally don't like that. But it's a tricky situation when you're in that because these players have somewhat proven themselves for their young age. But it's not like they've won Stanley Cups or anything like that. They're just young players who put up phenomenal amount of points, and looks like they have potential, but haven't won anything yet. Josh, do you want to talk about those?
Just tailing off of the Laine contract. It's a good deal for both sides. Didn't take too much longer to sign after the Point contract. The 2 years is probably good for both sides because, like you said, it's with Laine, he was definitely a gamble player for Winnipeg. Inconsistency was his problem the year we just had, and I could definitely say if I was in Kevin Cheveldayoff's chair, I definitely wouldn't be too quick to sign him to a long contract. So doing a bridge deal is probably the best for both parties. Laine got his money, and Winnipeg got probably a little discount and just got a little more longer chance to see what he can do. It's going to be interesting to see what Kyle Connor ends up getting.
He's the only one really left.
Yeah, he's the only, like him and Rantanen are the only really 2 left of the big names, and you'd probably want to go a little longer with Kyle Connor. He's shown consistency. He can play in that top 6 as a full-time role, so it'd be interesting to see what Connor's going to sign for. I think he'll get a little more, maybe at 7. 7 might make a little sense there, even number. Mm-hmm. That's where I think Winnipeg stands. With the Braden Point deal, I think we can say it's probably up there with the top bargains in the league now, for sure. Getting him at 6.75 for a top 20 scorer last year in the NHL. That's excellent contract negotiation on the part of Tampa Bay Lightning. You gotta imagine they brought up winning a chance to win a Stanley Cup within those 3 years a lot, and that was probably a big deal of why he signed it, especially too with the no state tax in Florida. That's all his.
It's right in his pocket.
Money. Yeah, it's right in his pocket. So when you take though, Braden Point, the year we just had, finished 12th in league scoring. So when you look at those guys, taking out Rantanen, who hasn't signed yet, and taking out Point, if we average out those 18 guys' salary, it's 8.6 a year. That's the average for a top 20 goal scorer in the league going into this year. So to get him $2 million less It's another roster spot. And that could be the player that scores 10 goals in the playoffs and helps them win a cup this year or next year. So
That could be your Devontae Smith-Pelly.
that could be your Devontae Smith-Pelly, exactly. Or your Patrick Maroon, as we just seen this year in St. Louis. So
Oh, what a flex for him, though. You've seen that video, right?
yes, after the fight.
With the ring?
Yeah,
That
it was really funny.
I still don't know if that's the douchiest thing I've ever seen or if it's the ballsiest thing I've ever seen, but either way, I love it. I love him.
I rather would have seen it in like the regular season, preseason.
After he actually got the ring.
Yeah, preseason kind of you don't have it yet.
Yeah.
But no, it was good. But yeah, no, I like both deals. Makes sense for both sides. You like you said, Point's probably gonna get the big ticket after this deal.
Yeah.
Because he saw the window and he's taking advantage of that. Because guys want the ring and the money, and he might be getting both in the end of this contract. And then we had the big guy. Another big guy out west signed, Matt Tkachuk, the 3-year, $20 million deal, 7 AAV.
Now, it's just 7 through the first 2. The last year is actually a 9.
Yeah.
And that's the qualifying offer as well. So he's definitely getting paid after this contract. Of all the people, I think we spoke about it last episode, it's hard to compare all the RFAs because they're all completely different. But as a whole, to me, Matthew Tkachuk is the best player in every single aspect of the game, whether it be defensively, offensively, physically. I feel like he's a very good young leader. So to me, if you're gonna pay a player $7 million and have him be the best overall player in your team, I think that's a huge steal. Just the thing with that contract that surprises me was it took that long to get done. For a 7 million AAV, I would have assumed that would have been done long ago. To me, I had him signing for 8. And if 7 is the case, I still don't understand why that just came out now, unless it was already agreed upon and it just never came forward because they were waiting for everyone else. I'm not really sure because I don't see Braden Point or Mitch Martin really affecting Matthew Tkachuk's contract because they're not. He's not in the same conversation as them, and I can't see it being a comparable at all.
No, but I think you can say this with all the big name RFAs that are finally signed this year. I think the biggest thing was teams midway through the year we just had and towards the end were really hoping for those long-term deals, the 7-8 year deals,
Which you're not seeing anymore.
And I think the reason why is because Austin Matthews set that market when he signed his 5-year deal. I think that kind of set the market for a lot of RFAs because then they realized, I don't have to sign that 8-year contract because the caps just keep going up, so why not just take 3 years off that contract and get paid even more? So I think that's why it's taking so long, and you gotta imagine that Calgary wanted to sign Tkachuk for 7-8 years because if I don't know if you agree with me on this, but Tkachuk's the next captain after Giordano.
I would say so. I don't watch a lot of Calgary games, but from what I can tell, you can already tell at the young age he is. He's definitely the leader on the ice. He's a big body. He's vocal. He was like that in junior. I don't believe he was the captain of the London Knights, but he had an A on his jersey, I believe, and he was a big leader, and he was a role player, and he was one of the biggest reasons that London won the Memorial Cup a few years ago. And you can't let a guy like him go. I mean, people were talking about Marner or Points or somebody getting offer sheeted, and I'm surprised. Nothing's come out about it yet. It might have still happened, but I'm surprised no one has offer sheeted Matthew Tkachuk, because if you're gonna come in and offer sheet him at $8.5 million, you're gonna get an amazing player for $8.5 million. He's not gonna be putting up 100 points like Marner could be or Braden Point could be, but if you're getting 80 points and you're putting guys through the boards and you're playing on the PK, to me that's an amazing deal. So I'm surprised nothing's come out about that yet, but not everything does. I mean, we only heard of 2 teams that went after Mitch Marner and he turned both down. But I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't want to go to Minnesota in this state, and for some reason someone doesn't want it. Nobody wants to go to Columbus, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, I just think just now it's just seeing what Rantanen signed for because you can tell from all these deals there's no comparison between
every
each
single player
individual
is
guy.
different. Yeah.
So, but as we said last week, Laine and Rantanen do share an agent. So obviously that contract for their agent is definitely on the front burner for him. It's just now, what do you negotiate with Colorado? Because as we seen and you talked about last week, you found it hard to see, and you were right on this, you found it hard to see that Braden Point was going to get a dime more than Kucherov or Stamkos.
No, I couldn't see it at all.
And he didn't.
No.
So you got to imagine that you can't see Rantanen getting more than McKinnon.
Oh, he has.
And McKinnon's at 6.5. So do you think they bring it at 6.5? Do you think that's where it settles at on a 2-year deal, just like Laine, just at 6.5?
Now, if he's signing a bridge deal, I'm going to say it'd be in the 7 range. If I'm staying in Colorado, if I'm Mikko Rantanen, and I'm signing a bridge deal because they don't want to give me this big, massive contract because they know in the next 2 to 3 years they have lots of guys coming out of entry-level contracts, not even just entry levels, but contracts.
They'll have Makar for sure.
Yeah.
Byron might be up by then too, even though he got sent down. You don't know when he might be back up.
Yep.
So it could be a lot of guys that you have to sign all at once.
They have players that need to get paid, and they're going to get paid. And you can't just say, oh, well, we have $16 million in cap space and throw that out there and say, hey, look, we have $16 million, why don't you just take 10? I mean, as a smart GM, you have to look down the road. You have to see who you have and what they're worth.
If you're not playing for 5 years down the road, there's no point playing for tomorrow.
No. You need to know exactly what's going on with your franchise. So if he signs a bridge deal, I feel like it's a 4 to 5 year deal. But if it's a bridge deal, I would say probably a 2-year deal, and they work all the contracts out at the same time because a lot of guys will be expiring in 2 years from now. So if it's a 2-year bridge.
So do you think it matches with McKinnon's, or do you think it matches with Laine and he just makes $25K more than McKinnon does?
I think it's going to match up more with Laine. I'm sure they're going to pay him more than McKinnon.
Yeah. And I think, and like we talked about, what would that look like in the locker room with Point getting more money than Kucherov and Stamkos? Because those guys just signed their deal recently. McKinnon signed his deal before Stamkos signed his. So that's why McKinnon's salary is so low. So McKinnon probably wouldn't see that as a slight to him because Rantanen's making a little more than him. It's just the way the cap has gone up. And then McKinnon's going to get his payday in, I think it's 4 years or 3 years, something like that. He'll get his big payday too. So I agree with you where it's probably going to match up more with Laine's than McKinnon's.
Yeah, I would have to, like, if we're going to break it down, I'm assuming it's going to be more like a Laine where it's a 2-year. Well, they say we have so much money this year, so here, just take most of it this year and bank it, and then next year when we're trying to figure out what we have going on, then it'll be a smaller salary so you can break down what it is. And you also got to think about it is within the next 2 years, I'm going to take a guess and say Colorado's really going to shoot for a run. They have a lot of pieces in place. They have a good team, so I would have to think, if you're going to make a run, if you're going all the way to the salary cap, you need to know where your wiggle room is. So if you're going to add a key piece right at the end there, right at the trade deadline, you have to know where your cap is and what kind of salary you can bring in, as well as who you have to move out, because if you're a cap team, somebody has to leave for someone to come in. Just basic sense. So you need to know exactly where all the numbers are, and it's something you constantly have to have in your mind. But for Rantanen, for a deal, I'd say a 2-year deal. And I mean, you can say, he's getting paid more than McKinnon. That's a slap in the face. I don't see it in that situation.
No, because the contract was signed so long ago.
Yeah, and it was a long contract. And in the end of the day, McKinnon's still making $6 million.
Yeah.
It's not like if you're Point in Tampa Bay, you walk in there and you say, hey, Kucherov, you signed last year and you were the MVP and 126 points it was, and then you ask for more money than him. That, to me, that's a slap in the face. You haven't earned that. Or even Steven Stamkos, who signed 2 years ago. I think it was 2, maybe even 3 years ago.
I think it was the summer of 2016, so I think it might have been 3.
So you're talking 3 years ago, and he's making 8.5, and he's been the face of that franchise for 10 years now. Like I said last week, I don't see how you could ever do that, and I think they realize that as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, everybody else wants to see everybody get paid. So it's a two-way street. But, I mean, there's always cap issues with if you're a good team, you're going to have cap issues. There's no good teams that don't have cap issues, because if not, you're probably not a good team.
Yeah, unless you're Edmonton.
Which is just a clusterfrig of itself. So, we had a trade last week. It wasn't the trade that we did talk about. It's a potential trade, but it lined up in a way with the trade we thought was going to happen and didn't, but this one went. So, we had Justin Faulk gets traded to from Carolina to the St. Louis Blues, Stanley Cup champions. Don't forget, January 3rd, they were in last place. Just If it hasn't been beaten to death by now, I just thought I'd let you know. So in return, they get Joel Edmondson. They get Dominic Bach, who was a 2018 first-round pick. Really good player. I remember when you
who is listed pretty high on the prospects list of St. Louis.
So I would assume he's going to slide right into the number 2 spot of top prospects for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
I remember when you and I watched the draft last year, and he kept falling and falling. I think he was ranked 17th, and he kept falling and falling and falling, and I was so surprised at the time when he fell, and I think that was a really good pick for St. Louis to pick up. But he gets moved, and then just a random 7th-round pick gets thrown in there. So you have...
And a 5th goes along with Faulk to St. Louis, too.
Yeah, so you have Justin Faulk and a 5th-round pick for Joel Edmondson, who will be a nice bottom pair defenseman for the Carolina Hurricanes. Top prospect, Dominic Bach, and a 7th-round pick. That's pretty good. I don't exactly see that for St. Louis. To me, I don't know why unless they really feel like Pietrangelo is going to fall off the map, and they bring him in as a replacement for the next 2 years. I don't see the whole purpose of bringing him in, because you have the St. Louis decor right now, and you have Dunn and Pietrangelo, Bouchard, Parayko, and then you have Gunnarsson and Falk, with Bertuzzo just kind of filling in there. See, I feel like for this year, maybe Bouchard might just drop down, maybe as a third-line guy or like a penalty kill kind of guy, and just kind of shorten the playing time there, because he's an older guy. But that's a pretty solid decor for St. Louis. But I still don't understand because he did sign right after he got traded there, and it's a pretty big cap hit for a team like St. Louis. I mean, it's not outrageous. I believe it's $7 million.
I think 6.5.
Yeah, okay, so we have a 6-year, 6.5 AAV. So, I mean, it's not a bad contract, but to give up Edmondson, who is a good bottom pair defenseman, don't get me wrong, he has 1 year left, so he probably thought he was going to be getting paid next year. He signed this year after winning arbitration, so they probably thought maybe they were going to have to pay him and didn't want to have to do that. But, I mean, to give up a prospect like Dominic Bach, I don't really see that, but, like, where do you see that?
I see it as a good trade for both teams. It's a trade that came out of left field.
Yeah, no one
thought that St. Louis was on the radar for Faulk.
It was all Anaheim.
It was all Anaheim. And this, I think it's pretty obvious, this is a repeat trade for St. Louis. This is saying we think our team's the exact same, just
minus a few guys here and there.
Yeah, minus a few guys. Maroon's gone. Some other depth guys are gone. Edmondson obviously goes in the trade, gone. He was a big part of that cup run. Mm-hmm. He really played some crucial minutes. So Falk's going to have to. Falk's obviously a higher end defenseman than Edmondson, but sometimes you want that defensive defenseman. Falk's more of a offensive guy when you look at his numbers. So I like the trade for St. Louis, but when you look at it for Carolina, their decor now rounds out with Slavin, Pesce, Gardner, Hamilton, Edmondson, and Van Riemsdyk. That's how you think that's probably how it's going to play out when the season starts. And then their 7th guy, I mean, you could go with Frederick Kleisen. He had played 37 games last year. Gustav Forsling they have with 43 games he played last year, and then the next guy is Hayden Fleury. He only played 2 games last year. Yeah. So there's not a lot of experience after that top 6 for depth. So you gotta imagine bringing Edmondson back was definitely a huge part of that trade. But also picking up a prospect who projects to be a top 6 forward if he reaches his ceiling.
A top line winger.
Yeah, a top line winger. It can end up really working, and especially we see sometimes European guys grow faster than the North American guys because they're playing with the big boys over in the European leagues.
Yeah. He's a German playing in Sweden.
Yeah, he could come over next season, and when they're really ready to make a run, he can be a real piece of that core that takes them into the playoffs. And Edmondson can still be there with them because it's a pretty good decor. Like, I know you get rid of Falk, but you signed Gardner, and you brought in a really good defensive guy, and yes, there's some takeaway, but there is little gain, too, on the back end. Mm-hmm. It's going to decrease the goals for sure that Carolina allows.
They're going to be a huge puck-moving team this year from the back end, for sure. I mean, you have a guy like Jake Gardiner. That's what he's known for.
First pass guy.
Yeah, and I mean Edmonton's a defensive defenseman as well, but he is strong on that pass. They're going to be a hardcore breakout team. They got those big speedy wingers. So I mean, you're going to see a lot of stretch passes this year, a lot of off the boards, and it's going to be a dump and chase kind of thing. Which I mean, if that's the style you want to play, they definitely have the back end for it, and that's what I would imagine it would have to be. Now, the other trade that didn't happen that we kind of thought would happen is there was talks of Julius Honka because he wants that trade out of Dallas. There is some rumblings going around that at the time it was going around that the two teams that were in the mix were Carolina and the Habs, Montreal. So Faulk was thought to be going to Anaheim. A lot of people were thinking, well, if they get rid of him, they're probably not going to get anybody in return from Anaheim, I would imagine.
I couldn't... If Anaheim is trading for Faulk, you can't imagine they were willing to give anybody up on that D-core. No.
So the idea was more than likely, and it was probably floated through the front office of Carolina, and it probably was their plan A until they just probably made some last-minute calls, and St. Louis, gave them what they wanted. So the idea was probably going to be Justin Faulk gets moved, probably for some prospects, picks, maybe even like a bottom 6 forward, and then they use what they got there, or if whatever it really was that they wanted to move out for Julius Honka, and he gets a fresh start in Carolina. Now, Carolina's not an option. The other possibility is Montreal. Montreal has some extra players that they're willing to move right now. They have some guys that are in their last year contracts. So, I mean, I could see that as a possibility. You can move some young players like, Charles Hudon. You can move him out and bring in a guy like Julius Honka. Montreal is always looking for defensemen. And I still see a lot of ceiling room for Julius Honka. I still feel like he could develop into be a good top 4 defenseman given the right situation. He just hasn't had that so far in Dallas because they've had all those great young players. Like, you're not going to compete with a spot for Heiskanen. There's no way. So this could be forming now as we speak, and we could just see it, or it could be somewhere out in left field. All of a sudden Jesse Puljujarvi gets traded for Julius Honka, and Edmonton brings in a defenseman, right? So you never know, but I would look out definitely on the horizon for Montreal being a serious player on Julius Honka.
Yeah, and just right quick too, going back to Faulk, just a last little note. The only reason why he's not a Duck is because Anaheim wasn't offering the contract that St. Louis was.
It was. So just keep that in mind.
Anaheim could have had the better deal, but Faulk had a no move clause, and he decided where to go. So yeah. Anaheim could have been offering something way better, but it was just St. Louis who tempted him with that contract.
If you have a no move, you have all the power.
So that's just the one little note I wanted to say. But going to Honka now, I understand why Montreal's interested. It's a young defenseman, someone you could easily put into your top 6 and help you out. I just find it hard to see who Montreal would move. Like Charles Hudon, I understand that because he's a young forward, but he hasn't really shown as much potential as a Honka has on the back end. So if you're gonna move a Hudon, you're definitely gonna have to add a pick.
There's gonna be a piece.
You're gonna have to add a piece to get a Honka. And is Honka worth that? If you're Mark Bridgman, that's up to you. I would say probably yes. I would say he is, because maybe it's just because sometimes all a player needs is a change of scenery, and then bang, they're unreal.
Yep.
So is it worth taking that risk? Probably. I wouldn't shoot too high with the pick. I probably wouldn't go over a second.
I don't see there's no way Mark Bergevin moves a first round pick for Julius Honka.
And not just either with conditional too. Like, I wouldn't send a second and be like, oh, if Honka plays 45 games, it turns into a first. Nothing like that.
No,
just
it
like
be a
pure second and a third, or a third, maybe a second or a third and a Hudon. That would probably be a good value for Honka. But
and I mean, just to cut in there, the problem was with Dallas last year was they were too front heavy. It was all Jamie Benn and Radulov and Sagan. They didn't have that depth scoring that they needed to kind of push them over the edge, and that was a serious problem.
So you gotta imagine they're looking for a third line scorer to play with. Let's see, what's his name? Radim Faska. Probably with a scorer winger on for him, just to add that depth. So is Hudon that guy? I don't think so. So I really think if is Puljujarvi maybe in the right spot, Maybe he's shown glimpses of being a point getter in the NHL.
Yeah, you never know. You throw him in a wing with Jamie Benn and see what happens.
Yeah,
That can help him develop.
Yeah, I couldn't really see that in Dallas with the Radulov, Sagan, and Ben line, but I can definitely see him on that second line and give him that chance. That would be a trade to me that makes more sense if Kenny Holland picked up the phone instead of Jim Nill, Puljujärvi, Honka 1-for-1. I think that's fair value for both. I understand one was taken 14th overall, one was taken 3rd overall, and fans usually get that in their heads and they say, well, this guy's taken 3rd overall, or 4th overall, Puljujärvi was taken. I'm sorry about that.
After Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yeah. Fans get that in their head. He's got to be worth way more than that guy. He was taken 10 picks ahead of him, but it was a different draft. It was a different time, and guys develop slowly, and sometimes they end up getting traded. We seen it when Nashville and Columbus made their Ryan Johansson and Seth Jones trade.
Yeah.
A lot of people seen it as both teams addressing needs, but at the same time, you're giving up a super young defenseman in Seth Jones, who is developing into a Norris candidate this year. Can easily be a Norris candidate this year.
Yeah.
And Ryan Johansson, who addressed the need for Nashville, and they got their second line center, which they keep seeming to be getting every year with Turris and Duchesne. But I think that could be a trade that we see is the same as the Jones and Johansson trade. Not the same level, but the same circumstances, I'd say.
Yeah. And for sure, no, you're saying that like people always get really, they focus really hard on where a player was drafted, but you have to understand, players are getting drafted when they're 17, 18 years old. You know, their body changes, how they play the game, it completely changes. So yeah, you can be drafted...
Brain point, 4th round pick.
Yeah, you can be drafted 10th overall, and you can get completely passed by some guy on a different team who was picked in the 6th round. I mean, it's all about your environment and how everything works, you know? You can hit a growth spurt when you grow 2 inches, and with those 2 inches, you have that extra reach that you never had. So when you're coming down the ice, you can pull that puck away from someone, and they can't take it from you. So you can't get too hung up on those numbers. It doesn't really matter after those players are drafted. At the time, yeah, he was... A lot of people thought he was going 3rd to Columbus, and then Columbus pulled a sneaky one. They said, no, we might have a Finnish GM, and he's a Finnish player, but we like this kid because we think he's a center, and I watched PLD his years in Cape Breton here, and to me he didn't look like a center. He was trying to play center, and it didn't really go well.
To me, he looked like a left winger the entire time he was here.
He was a winger. But he did work hard, and he really worked in Columbus to become a centerman, and now he is. He's a very good second-line center, and he's going to be the centerpiece of that team going down the road. You know, it's going to be a big thing with him and Werenski and Seth Jones. Like, that's going to be
their nice building blocks.
Yeah, those you got to have that.
And Atkinson, too.
Yeah, you have to have that number 1 center, even if you don't... Even if he only ever develops to be a number 2 center, at the moment he's projected to be your number 1 center in the future, which you need, and you also need a nice winger, and you also need a big defenseman. You have those 2 big defensemen.
I mean, you have a great pairing with Werenski. You're starting off good with Pierre-Luc Dubois, and then a pairing of Werenski and Jones. You can't. That's a really good pairing.
Yeah, so those are pieces that you want to build the team around. So I mean, it's these guys are 17, 18 years old, and he was the 4th, 3rd best player at the time, but he's 21, 22 years old now. He's not who he was when he was 18. Other people have surpassed him, and some people he's surpassed themselves. So you never really know, and it's only time will tell. You know, he's had a few games in the NHL. They didn't go so well. He was down in with Bakersfield, and, you know, he was okay there. Maybe he just needs another year or two over here. You know, maybe he stays in Finland all year, and he just dominates over there, and he comes back, and he's a different player. You know, he's played again with more men, and it's just he's now a better player. You know, it's only time will tell. All right, so we had some young guys not making NHL teams. One kind of surprising, one, you know, a little bit of a head scratcher, but not exactly. So we had Eli Tolvanen got sent down to the Milwaukee Admirals from the Nashville Predators, former top pick. A lot of hype around this guy for the last couple of years, and it just doesn't seem like it's there now. You know, he was supposed to be this big, young, amazing winger, and showed so much promise when he was younger. Again, like we talk about, you know, you get drafted in your position and you're the best player, and then a few years down the road you're not. But a lot of people thought this would be the year that maybe he cracks the roster, and he didn't. And he's going to start with Milwaukee, and I'm going to take a guess and say he's going to be the first player they call up if there's an injury. But at the moment, he's going to stay down in Milwaukee and slug it out there for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Tolvanen. I think he will be. I don't think his potential's hurt in any way. I think I still see him as definitely an elite winger in the league. He's only 21. It's not like he
has lots
26,
of time.
27. He has lots of time. And he's only played 2 years now in North America. And he's played since he was 15 years old on the big ice. Some guys, it just takes a little longer to get used to the smaller ice. And I was pretty shocked that he was sent down because I was assuming that him and Dante Fabro were going to be the two young guys for Nashville that really come in and make big impacts for the team for that playoff push, because you got to believe that they wanted both of them. And Dante Fabro, I think, is going to make the team. I don't think he's been cut yet. I don't think.
I haven't read it yet.
I think he's still on the team. And I was really hoping both of them would make it because I think they're going to be big impact players for Nashville. And like he's definitely probably going to be the first one or two that they call up for injury. But if you're Nashville, you're probably a little disappointed you didn't see enough out of him this year to keep him on the roster as a full time. But you got to be optimistic. He's only 21. He's got tons of time to be a star.
So the other young player that we had that got sent down is Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers, former London Knight, former 8th overall pick by the Edmonton Oilers. A lot of hype around Evan Bouchard. He's a young man who looks like he's 28 years old. He's a brick shithouse is exactly what he is. He is an elite defenseman. He is projected to be a first pairing defenseman. He can blast a puck past you. And he will also knock you down to get that puck. And
he's right-handed.
And he's a right-handed
If that
defenseman.
adds any commodity.
Oh, that adds so much.
I think it adds a massive one.
It adds a lot to him. So, Ken Holland comes in over the summer. A lot of people confused. I don't think there's anybody in Edmonton besides from Ken Holland who has any idea what's going on. And I don't even know if Ken Holland does. And that's not a jab at him. It's just there's so much going on with that Edmonton Oilers team that I really don't know if there's a place to start. I just think you start throwing things out there, and then if they work, you go from there, and if they don't, you still go from there. But this is the big situation that Edmonton is coming into, where in the past, they've had these first-round picks and first overall picks that come in, and they say, well, we're in trouble now. We need you now. And you get those players. You get your Hall and your Nugent Hopkins and your Yakupovs and your Connor McDavids, and you just throw those guys in the lineup, and you have the potential just for them not to work out. A lot of players need to develop.
You kind of seen that story, you kind of seen that stunt too if you add Kyler Yamamoto to that.
Yeah, because they did send down.
Who they did, but when they drafted him, he did play 9 games, and he did not look he looked good in preseason, but he did not look good when they kept him for the 9 games. So Edmonton has the history of rushing guys to the NHL, and so I think this is Ken Holland taking their first step in realizing that not every first round pick is going to be ready 1 or 2 years after their draft.
And I think that's one of the reasons. I think it's the main reason that Ken Holland got the job is he said, "Listen, I spent how long in Detroit?
25.
Yeah,
25 years.
It's a long time.
Most of them in playoff years and a couple cups mixed in.
Yep." He came in and he said, listen, I'm Ken Holland, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I like to develop my prospects.
Slowly.
Very slowly. They will definitely spend their time in the AHL. If you look at some of the teams that the Grand Rapids Griffins have put on, I believe they've had 2 Calder Cups in the last 8 years. They develop their players.
The only guy you can probably think of that Detroit hasn't taken their time with was Dylan Larkin.
Who spent a year
in college,
which that's
That's
a borderline
in the American League.
Yeah, it's above the ECHL. It's almost at the American League level. And he was playing at a top school, too. So that does help. And he made an impact as soon as he jumped in that lineup. But with Ken Holland coming in, I definitely think it's a good thing for the Edmonton Oilers. But I know a lot of Oilers fans are pretty sick of losing. But I have news for you. It's going to continue. There's no quick fix for this team. You need to take your time. And from the short time that Ken Holland's been in there, I feel like he's done nothing but excellent things. He's did what he could.
It's kind of hard to do
his
worse.
hands were pretty tied. I mean, the only thing that didn't get done is the Puljujarvi situation, and I don't really know what you can do. Both sides they're pretty firm, and I understand both sides. You know, Puljujarvi came in, he got hurt, he had double hip surgery. He was playing through pretty much messed up hips, and he was saying, "I am hurt, I can't play," and they're saying, "No, you're fine, you get back out there." It's hard to go back and trust that medical system. You're 21 years old, 22 years old, and you're in pain, and they're not believing in you. It's hard to trust that, and just because a new guy comes in, that doesn't mean anything. You think of the amount of people that Edmonton's brought in there. It's just been a revolving door of people. There's never been any stability, and I think he notices that, and he definitely would add a lot to that team. But at the same time, I understand for his best interest why he isn't there right now. But the Ken Holland effect is definitely, it's in there. And because of that, we're seeing Evan Bouchard go to the minors, and he's going to spend that year in Bakersfield. Again, like Tolvanen, he probably will be the first person that gets called up in the event of an injury or just even someone's not playing well. And he probably could make the team out of camp. I mean, like I said, he's a 28-year-old basically on skates. He's mature physically. He plays an unreal game. You weren't going to send him back to junior. He's 20. There's absolutely no reason. You need him playing against men. And yeah, he definitely could have probably made that team. But to send him down there, it's probably going to be better for his game. Even if it's just this 1 year and then he comes up next year. I feel like next year Edmonton's going to hit the ground running because Ken Holland's going to have a lot more room to work with.
Do you think because of Bouchard being sent down and Broberg, who they just took this year, going back to Sweden, do you think that's Ken Holland quietly saying, don't expect us to make the playoffs this year?
Yeah.
Because that's pretty, in my mind, that's telling two defensive guys, two future defensemen that you hope are part of your top four for a very long time, saying, listen, we don't want you to be around this environment this year. Go and excel in your two different levels of where you're going to play, and hopefully we'll be ready for you to come up and have a competitive team. That to me is what that says.
No, that's exactly what it is. It's the Brian Burke situation it's that one story that Brian Burke loves to tell about how he had Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf, and he said, no,
yes,
you're not playing on this team. This is a bad team. We don't want you learning from this. And no, that's 100%. That's what it is. It's saying, listen, you're a big boy and you could probably make this team, but for your mental health, I know it's the weird term to use, but I don't think they want him in that environment, thrown into that losing environment, and to experience all that the same way all the other players have. And it can really affect some players, and
I think you can see it on Connor McDavid's face now. Yeah. All especially what the last couple seasons when they've been knocked out, and the Edmonton media is still asking him questions like, "Oh, does it feel bad that you're not in the playoffs?" Like, what are you supposed to say to that?
Yeah.
Obviously.
People get tired of losing a lot quicker than people like to think, especially when you're getting paid millions of dollars and there's a lot of questions being asked of you. But no, just to relate back to the Bouchard thing, if Edmonton's out in January or February, I wouldn't be surprised if they just said, listen, because as soon as a team gets eliminated from the playoffs, what's the first thing they do? They start to win. The pressure's off. You see it all the time. Teams that are in last place that are hoping for a lottery pick, they start winning and they lose their chances.
Because they trade out the guys that are worth something. They bring up the guys who want to earn a roster spot for next year, and they start playing hard. And
there's no pressure. Once you're eliminated from the playoffs, you take a sigh of relief. It sucks and you're pissed off about it, but you're just playing hockey. That's all you're doing. And don't be surprised if Evan Bouchard comes up and he plays the last 20 years in Edmonton, or last 20 years.
They hope he plays 20 years.
Yeah, they'd probably love that. But no, the last 20 games in Edmonton, just in a no-stress situation, you put him second line, you maybe give him some power play, and you say, listen, kid, just
I say you
do
put
what
him,
you can do.
When they bring him up, and I agree with you, they probably will at the end of the year, put him with Clefbaum. Clefbaum. I think Clefbaum, that pairing, a second pairing with him and Clefbaum, you have Nurse, Larson, Clefbaum, Bouchard down the tail end of the stretch. That could be your top four for the next, and then you add in Broberg, obviously mix it in there. I don't think he'll be over for this year at all. Maybe not even the year after that.
I think next year. I think what you're talking about, like they kind of go hand in hand. Where you're saying it's not going to happen this year, guys. So I think Broberg going back and playing against men, and he's going to continue to develop. So next year they can bring the two of them in. They can say, listen, there might be a chance now. I mean, they're going to have a lot more room cap-wise, not a whole lot, but they're going to have room, and Ken Holland can really put a stamp on that team. He, like we said, his hands were tied this year.
This team's going to have to be built from within.
Yeah, and there's a lot that's going to need to be built and fixed and repaired. It's a tough job. So don't think you'll see anything until next year, because that's when it's going to really start. That's when Ken Holland has it as his team. This is what's left over. Next year is going to be his team.
Alexis Lafreniere, just go for him. There's your problem. Him and McDavid on the first line. That's what you need.
Ooh, that's some dirty hockey right there. Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel about being on the West Coast if that was the case.
I don't feel if every NHL fan seeing Edmonton get another first overall pick.
I feel like Brian Burke would have an aneurysm and he'd lose his mind about the first overall pick situation, like he ripped on my Devils last year about getting the first overall pick 2 times in 3 years. I don't think they should be able to pick anything worse than third.
I do agree with that, though.
I do in some regards. I don't think you should be able to get it back-to-back years, but I think it's crazy to think in this NHL you're going to draft a player first overall who's immediately going to take your team and turn it around.
Toronto did.
But Toronto also had a ton of key pieces in place.
But we only drafted first overall once.
Yes, but you also had, 4th overall, 7th overall?
But according to Brian Burke, we would be allowed to do that. So technically we did it under the Brian Burke method. Toronto did it exactly right.
They did, but look at how many times that goes wrong. Like we're talking about with Columbus, how you have those 2 dominant defensemen in that first overall, first line center. You have to have those 3 key pieces, whether it is 2 defensemen. There was Morgan Riley, and then you had your Mitch Marner on the go, and then you also had your Nylander, and then, Matthews kind of just fell into their lap, and by fell into the lap, I think they meant, okay, we're going to tank because we want this player to compete, to complete all of this. And
we need a number 1 center.
Yeah,
instead of the countless attempts to sign one in free agency, which we ended up doing years after we wanted to, we said, we'll tank, and we got Matthews.
No, but when you think about it, of the last 10 drafts, who is the one player who could go first overall, who could turn a team completely around?
McDavid.
Yeah, and where is he?
In Edmonton.
And what's happened?
It's not turned around.
No, nothing's happened.
Well, that's just bad management at that point.
But again, that's the way it goes. So
it's not the way it goes though, because it's bad management.
But that's the way that game of hockey goes. Nothing's perfect.
So you're saying the way of hockey goes is bad management.
A lot of teams are managed poorly, yeah.
And then that tracks up to the owner.
It's his team.
It starts somewheres. You're just butthurt because Brian Burke said you shouldn't get Jack Hughes, which you shouldn't have.
I would have been happy with
because you got Nico Hischier.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with Nico Hischier, but he's not the kind of player who's going to turn a franchise around in 1 year.
You decided to be bad that year. That's not the
We
NHL's
didn't decide
fault.
to be bad this year. We had the most man games lost to injury. We were playing with an AHL team for 3/4 of the year.
I know, but even if the Devils had a full roster, are you sure you still wouldn't end up with that first overall pick with Schneider in the net?
Yeah, Blackwood played pretty good. So probably would have had a top 5 pick. I don't think it would have been first.
I
think we probably would have had an Alex Turcotte.
Yeah, I just think Brian Burke makes a lot of sense with that.
Yeah, sometimes. All right, we have 2 more topics since we're talking about the Leafs. You ever done anything stupid when you're drunk?
A lot.
Yeah, I feel like you've told me some stories about you taking pylons home. You ever done something like that?
Couple times.
Couple times, yeah. Well,
And some other things.
Not
as bad as what we're going to talk about.
No, have you ever dropped your pants to your ankles and touched your bum with your underwear on and shook your butt in a former military vet's face?
No, I usually keep the belt on and the pants up when I'm out.
So Austin Matthews, back in May, got charged with disorderly conduct for doing such thing. I believe it was at his condo.
His apartment. It is his apartment complex. That's what it is.
Yeah. So him and his buddies were out, had a few too many, which happens all the time. Everywhere you go, it always happens somewheres. But he had a little too much fun, and on the way home, him and the boys, they had some fun, and he dropped his pants in front of a security guard, and they were tapping on her car, and she was kind of fearful. She didn't call the cops right away. She just let it go. She took a report, and she called it the next day. And we just heard about it 3 days ago. which is kind of funny.
And so did everyone else in the Leafs organization.
Yeah, Dubas only seen it on Twitter, and Babcock only heard about it that day, and I don't know. Part of that kind of seems kind of fishy. If you get charged with disorderly conduct, if you're a high name player, I feel like somebody should have heard about that.
Well, I think someone did, and someone linked it. Apparently, Paul Marner got a whiff of it.
Oh.
And had no problem leaking it out. Now it's reported, it's not confirmed, but it's reported that Paul Marner was the one who leaked it. If my boy's not going to be captain, nobody is.
Now, saying that, who's the next Leafs captain? Does this affect at all Matthews getting the C or no?
I don't know if... It's hard to say. It's been a hard choice since Tavares signed. I think that was the first question asked within 5 minutes on TSN's Free Agent Frenzy when they signed Tavares. Who's going to be the captain?
Well, the thing is, Toronto didn't go into that free agency planning on signing Tavares.
They planned on making a pitch and not really get... And
yeah.
They planned on making a pitch and taking a gracious bow out, just like they did when Stamkos ended up re-signing with Tampa.
Yeah.
But they never got a meeting with Stamkos.
No, and that's the thing. I think it was kind of a shock. It was kind of a... You know, when you like a girl and you say, hey, you want to go out with me as a joke? And then she says, sure. And you go, oh, fuck, okay. Yeah, so Quiznos? Yeah, I think it's that kind of a situation. I think they weren't at all prepared. They just said, hey, Tavares, you want to come home, Pajama Boy? And he said, sure. And they were caught off guard. So I think that put a major wrench into those plans. But who gets it to you? Because I have this big thing that I want to talk about, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I've been a Leafs fan since I was a small kid. And the one player I've loved a lot since he came to the team was Morgan Rielly.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Wade Belak. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, Wade Belak, too.
Or Polak.
Polak, yeah.
Beautiful player. One of the greatest defensive defensemen of all time. Anyway, continue.
So Morgan Rielly, to me, been drafted in 2012, was promoted to be our next great defenseman, and has been been for a couple years now.
He's gone through. He got pulled through the mud with that, and he finally emerged victorious on the other side.
And I'm a big guy when it comes to. I don't want to say sonority, because that's just like, oh, this guy's been here so long, he should get the captain. I think it's just because Riley's been through the mud. He went through that really bad time when we were just god awful. He stuck it out, and he's not a very vocal guy, but in the locker room, I think he does have a presence. He's well spoken. He doesn't say anything outside the lines. He plays hockey. You hear nothing about him off the ice. I just think all around, he's an excellent candidate for the captaincy, and I think it's just because Matthews and Tavares is there, and the big thing is a center is usually the captain. Your first line center, captain. Mm-hmm. And I just think Morgan Rielly's the better choice, but at the end of the day, it comes down to Tavares and Matthews. My personal choice would be Rielly, but I know it's going to be one of the centermen. It's not going to be Mitch Marner as much as Paul Marner wants it. Yeah, I know.
What?
Yeah, don't tell Paul Marner or his grandmother, because she'll call Jeff O'Neill and try and smack talk him. Did you hear about that?
No. I heard Jeff O'Neill on Overdrive go off about how he was done with Mitch Marner.
And apparently after that, his grandmother, Mitch Marner's grandmother, called the Toronto Sun asking for Jeff O'Neill's phone number so she could tell him off.
Nice.
So you could tell how much... That's great to have so much support from the Marner family, but they gotta realize...
They gotta calm down.
They gotta calm down. So as much as it's gonna heartbreak Paul Marner that Mitch Marner won't be wearing the C with his brand new contract, it's gonna come down to Matthews or Tavares.
I think if they give him that C, he has to grow back his old school, long, greasy mullet hair.
From the London Night days?
From the London Night days, for sure. Yeah. Oh, Nick Ehlers is growing out his hair again.
Is he?
Yeah, he's got that nice Danish blonde
I haven't
locks.
seen him in a little bit.
Looks good. He looks like he looks like he did when he played with Halifax.
Still wish Toronto would draft him over Nylander, but...
Fine. Alright, so here's what my take with it is. I don't know if you know this, but there was this one guy who played with the Leafs for a few years. His name was Patrick Marleau.
Yes, I know who Patrick.
You know who Patrick? Okay.
I do.
So he was brought in to be Daddy Patty. He was. He is a experienced player, almost a Stanley Cup champion. Played a long time. Has a lot of respect from everybody in the NHL, in the league. He was brought in to be Daddy Patty. He was to take care of Mitch Marner and that other guy. No idea who he is. 43, I think he's his number.
34.
34, yeah. AM 34, Austin Matthews. I think that's him. So Daddy Patty was brought in to be daddy to Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. And boy, was he ever. I don't know if you've ever been on Instagram and seen some videos of them all doing some singing in the car and getting ice cream and all that. But Patrick Marleau was brought in to be the dad. So my thought was, you bring in Patrick Marleau, you say, listen, we got these young guys. You're here to lead them. You've been a captain before. I think the moment he should have signed that contract, it should have been in the contract. He has to be the Toronto Maple Leafs captain. I think he should have been the captain for 2 years, and then this year they would have brought in, or they would have moved him to an alternate and gave it to Matthews, is my understanding. But then when you bring in the next year, John Tavares, unexpectedly, like we said, I think it should have been the 1 year for Patrick Marleau, move it over to John Tavares for that second year, and then 2 to 3 years down the road, give it to Matthews. That is, to me, what should have went on, and it's not what went on. But if we're talking among the young players, like your Matthews, your Marner, I myself also would have gave it to Riley. He's the oldest of your young crew. He's been through the most, and he's one of your top defensemen, and he's going to be around for a while. And to me, I've never heard anything bad about Morgan Riley. Not to say anything bad about Mitch Marner and Matthews, but to me,
what was that thing? I forget. Sorry for interrupting. At the tail end of last year, something did come out about Morgan Riley.
The Raggett situation?
I think, yeah. Oh, yeah, the thing he said on the ice, or what he didn't say.
What he didn't say, but people were thinking he was saying.
And that's the only thing. He didn't say it, but that's the only thing that's ever come out about Morgan Riley. And it was just a mic issue.
If you don't know what we're talking about, last year during the mic'd up game.
One of the last games of the year.
Yeah, around the end of the year, there was a controversy because a player dumped the puck in, and another person started screaming a noise, and the mics picked it up, and the closest person to the mic was Riley.
Who said ragged?
He's not even the one who said it. It came off the bench.
Oh, okay.
They found out someone on the bench said it, and he was saying ragged, 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 which is a term that means rip it around the boards, dump it in, rim it hard.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought he was saying something else that starts with an F, that is a slur against homosexuals.
Yeah.
A lot of controversy there, and then it's the NHL. There's cameras everywhere. There's mics everywhere. They looked it up.
I think there's 8 mics around the boards.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
It comes back out that it wasn't him, and that's not even what was said. It was said by someone else on the bench. So, I mean, if that's your only controversy...
And Morgan Riley still came out and said an apology.
Yeah.
He still had an apology. Even though he said nothing, and we knew he said nothing, he had an apology and said it.
Yeah.
So that just shows you the leadership that he does have. He took responsibility for something that was stupid and went way out of hand. And to me, that just, hands down, makes him captain. I don't care if Tavares was captain with the Islanders. That's great for him. He left that there. To me, you leave the C with the team you were at. You just don't come and say, oh, I'm a captain there, I'm a captain here. It doesn't work like that. Am I wrong there?
I mean, no, you're not totally wrong. No.
Morgan Riley to me is the pick. And what you were just talking about with bouncing the C off of every shoulder on the Leafs roster for 2 years really doesn't make sense to me, because to me, and I'm a little old school when it comes to captaincy, when you pick a captain, and not necessarily alternate captains, because you can switch them out year by year, but when you pick a captain, like a captain, you're picking a guy that you believe is going to be there for longer than 5 years. No? You don't think that?
No.
You think you can bounce the C off every shoulder?
No, but not in today's NHL, where contracts are 3 to 4 years now.
That's just starting.
Yeah, but like...
If you want to move down that avenue,
but the NHL
go right
is...
back to Tkachuk in Calgary, we say he's going to be the next captain, but he's only on a 3-year contract.
Yeah, but I think he's going to get it within the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Just no, my initial understanding was, to me, because you know how the Toronto media reacts, and this whole captain thing, it's been a mess for years. To me, just when you sign Patrick Marleau, you say, listen, you're going to teach these kids. That's what we're bringing you in for. You've had a C before, and you can handle the media. You give it to him, and then down the road, they give it to Matthews. That was my understanding. But then once you have a player like Tavares comes in, you can say, listen, you don't need to be the captain anymore, Patrick. We'll give it to Tavares for 2 years, and then give it to Matthews.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of bouncing the C off of three different shoulders in 5 years when it adds up, when your plan adds up. And like, if you give it to Tavares, like, is he really going to be that happy if you're taking it off him in 2 years?
Well, I think he's going to understand it. I think he realized it's Austin Matthews' team. He just hasn't been through enough of it yet where he can deserve that C. So you need to be that placeholder for that C. If you give Matthews that C, I think Tavares is going to get an A, and he's still going to lead.
Well, Tavares already has an A.
Yeah, but I mean, he's going to be one of the players. He's going to be one of the groups of people who have an A.
I think your captainship core, anyways, no matter how you want to shape it up, it's got to consist of Matthews, Tavares, and Riley.
Yeah.
However you want to tee it up, that's your 3 guys.
I mean, if Ron Hainsey was still there, he probably would have wore the C this year. For sure.
Probably, I don't know.
For sure. He would have got a nice signing bonus and would have been the captain.
Do you think it affects... Who do you think it affects more of not getting the C? So if Tavares gets the C, do you think it affects Matthews more than if Matthews got the C and Tavares did? Like, who? Because I think it affects Matthews more in the way of, I'm gone in 4 years after this year. They're not going to give me the C. They don't believe in me. I'll just hop over to Arizona, and they'll definitely give him the C.
I don't think it affects Tavares all that much. I don't think Tavares came in expecting to be the captain.
No. So you do think it affects Matthews more if he doesn't get the C?
I don't think it affects him all that much. Like, I feel like people are putting too much focus on this. I mean, he's not a 10-year-old kid playing bantam who goes, I'm the best player on the ice. I deserve to be the captain.
Well, if he's the coach's kid, he probably has captaincy.
Yeah, and we've seen that enough. But I'm saying, like, there's always that kid who's 10 years old and goes, I'm the best player. I deserve to be the captain and winner.
Yeah. That's
not the case.
No.
The best player isn't always the captain.
No.
So, I don't think Matthews would throw a fit and say, well, I'm the best player here. I should be the captain. And I don't think being named...
Is Matthews the best player, though?
Arguably. That's an argument we could have for days.
I mean, fully healthy, you have a definite case. But if you're talking through the run of a season, how many games Matthews has missed, I would say Tavares and Marner have a leg up on him.
Yeah, and I'm sure that came up a lot with contract negotiations with Marner. But I'm just saying, like, he's the face of the franchise, and he is the first overall pick, so he's projected to be the best player. And I'm just saying, like, I don't think because you're the best player, you deserve to be that captain. And I think he would see it that way. He would say, listen, we have a lot of guys in this room. You know, I'm sure if they came out tomorrow and said Tavares is the captain, he's going to be his biggest supporter. I mean, I don't see.
What's he going to be behind the curtain? Is he going to be a supporter?
I think so. And even if Tavares gets a C, I think he's going to try to help him, and he's going to try to teach Matthews how to be a leader in the room. We forget he's only been in the NHL for 3 years, and he's been hurt. And I mean, he's had Daddy Patty to teach him the way, but his contract starts this year, right?
Yeah.
If Austin Matthews gets named captain after getting this big, huge, nice contract where he's getting paid a lot of money, and
most on the team,
yep, and
top 5 in the league,
he comes out and through the first 30 games of this year, he has 18 points.
Through the first how many games?
30 games.
So just over half a point a game.
Yeah. You don't think the Toronto media is going to just go at him beyond belief? If Marner has 25 points in 30 games, and for some reason Matthews has 18 points?
Yeah, because that's for sure. That's 100% true, because, and I don't need to, like, Toronto could be 30-0. It never happened, but I'm just saying, the Toronto media is so weird like that. We could be first in the league, first in division, all that stuff, but they're still going to nitpick that one little thing. Oh, Matthews is only getting half a point a game. What's wrong there? Doesn't matter that we're winning all the games. So I do see that. And whoever wears the C, And as Dion Phaneuf like wearing the C, he caught a lot of shit wearing the C.
No, the Toronto media is by far the worst media and the best media at the same time for hockey. And that's the thing. Toronto is the biggest market. They have, if we're just going to go this way with it, they have the absolute worst media. So if you're 30 games in the season, Austin Matthews is now the captain. He has a nice big contract, and he has 18 points in 30 games.
They're asking him every day what's wrong.
Yeah, and I feel like that's going to take a toll on him, and that could really affect him, whether it be his production or his morale. And if he goes through that first year, and then, what if he says, okay, 4 years from now, screw this, I am definitely gone. That's where I think it'd be okay to have Tavares come in there for 2 years and say, listen, I'm the captain, I'm going to take all this hit from the media, just do your thing and ease into it, and then when you're finally ready, we'll give it to you.
Why not just give Tavares the C now, and then when Matthews' contract's up, saying resign, we'll give you the C?
Does the C... But then we go back into it.
I think the C really matters to him, though.
Do you think it matters that much that he will not sign an extension with the team if he is not the captain?
It's a possibility. I do. I see that. Matthews... I really think it's a big part of who he is. He wants that, and it's not like he's being selfish. He just wants that C to prove to everybody that he can be a captain and stuff. And that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying it's going to play a big part. And that's why the decision's so hard, because I think Dubas and Babcock know that Matthews is going to be affected by who wears the C. That's why I'm saying if you pick Riley, I don't think he's going to be as pissed if you pick Tavares.
I don't know. I mean, he's got all that money in that mustache. I mean, he pretty much is Pablo Escobar. He could just make people go away now.
Yeah.
So, who knows? But, last topic. Josh, if you were a player in the OHL, you have played 3 years in the OHL with 2 different teams.
And killed it.
You're over, your point per game in the OHL in your 3 years is 1.03. But
for a defenseman, you're a former first-round pick. 18th overall?
28th.
28th.
Slipped all the way to 28th.
Yeah, sorry. Got the 8 right.
You're a defenseman from the OHL who's at over a point per game in his career and has an attitude problem. Who would you be?
Ryan Merkley.
Ding, ding, ding. Now, news today of Ryan Merkley. So there's been a lot of speculation. Earlier this month, it came out that the Peterborough Petes, who acquired Merkley during from the Guelph Storm, will not be bringing him back to the team. Automatically, that's some red flags. So we'll give you some backstory. Guelph picks this kid first overall, I believe, in the OHL draft.
Yeah.
He completely destroys it. He is one of the greatest defensemen in OHL history, offensively.
Yeah.
Just destroying
offensively, yes. We won't talk about his defensive game.
No, because he's very Brent Burns.
He might as well be a right winger.
Yes, exactly. But it's very well known that he has an attitude problem. Guelph says, all right, this is enough, and sends him to Peterborough. Peterborough has him for half a year and says, no, we're not bringing him back. So he was currently
and just a slide in right there, Peterborough is considered a contending team this year in the OHL. So for them to say, we don't need probably one, if not the best defenseman in the OHL for this run this year, that's saying something. Because the CHL is about win now.
You have 2 years to win in the CHL.
Yes.
It's 3 years of rebuilding, 2 years of potentially winning.
It works the way for every league, from the Q to the WHL, all 3 leagues, that's how it works for every team. So for a team to give up, I wouldn't say give up, because Peterborough's still good, but to let go a big chip like that on the blue line that could really help you out, it's got to say something bad about him.
So, OHL Insiders on Twitter reveals Ryan Merkley, who is still at the camp for the San Jose Sharks.
Who's flying back now, though?
He is now flying back because he was assigned /cut. He was going to be assigned to a junior B club in Ontario. Immediately,
300-point season.
Immediately, Darren Dreger, who also might be Paul Marner at the same time, might be, immediately takes this tweet and says, I have spoken to his agent, and he says this is not true. Part of me is kind of concerned with all of this, because to me, I feel like that is definitely a problem. But this is the way I see it. The San Jose Sharks knew this was a problem. They know he has an attitude problem. It was the reason he fell in the draft.
If you just listen to Brian Burke, who we referenced a lot in this episode, if you listen to Brian Burke, when they made the pick, right away they said, this is a high-risk pick and a high-reward pick.
Yeah. I don't think San Jose wanted Merkley going back and then playing Junior B. I think they want him going back and playing in the
I don't think you want any of your prospects. I don't even think you want a 7th-round pick that you just take and play in Junior B.
No.
What growth do you have in Junior B?
So, my understanding is San Jose kept him in camp as long as they could until a deal got made in the OHL. Because the moment they send him back, he's not playing in Peterborough, he's going to Junior B. So my understanding is they probably held on to him as long as they could until a deal got done. Today, or yesterday, a deal gets done. He is going to the London Knights.
Who else?
Surprise, surprise. We're probably going to pay him $100 million under the table.
Yeah.
And they're going to win.
But we don't pay players.
They don't pay players, except they're 20-year-old overage players who get the average value that all overage players get. Anyway, he gets traded for a 3rd-round pick and a conditional 2nd/3rd-round pick. I don't know. To me, this is a make it or break it for this kid. I say a kid, but he's 2 years younger than us. He's going to play in London, most historic franchise in the OHL, if you want to say it that way.
Of winning.
It seems like all they do is win. They just constantly bring in players.
I don't think I've ever seen a rebuilding year for London.
I don't know.
And I know we just said every team goes through a rebuild, but I don't remember the last time I seen London really rebuild.
Even in a rebuild year, they just bring in top players. It's beyond. But he's going to go play under Hunter, who is known to be a hard ass. I think this is it, and I think I would like to think that San Jose indirectly had some involvement in this. They said if you're going to send him somewhere, you can't send him somewhere where nobody's going to be on top of him 24/7.
Yeah, I think San Jose definitely had a big part in picking, because I mean, it's too much of a coincidence for him to go to London.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he went to Niagara. Or
there was talks Oshawa and
something
Saginaw
like that.
Wanted in.
That would be more of like Peterborough made that trade.
Mm-hmm.
But him going to London,
mm-hmm.
I think San Jose made that trade.
I feel like that too, because I think at this point they realize that if you're getting kicked out of the OHL, it's a serious problem for a top prospect who could come into the NHL and be a dominant winger/defenseman. And and that's the thing. This is definitely his last chance. And if he doesn't get his attitude under control, he's done. He's going to end up playing somewheres in Europe where they can't understand what he says when he yells at them. That's how I see it.
Yeah, what really confuses me about Ryan Merkley is when San Jose talks about him, seems like a average prospect when it comes to the attitude. He's not at a line, he's not arrogant, all that stuff. He's lived with Brett Burns the last 2 training camps.
Mm-hmm.
Brett Burns has nothing but gold to say about him, and San Jose has nothing but positive things to say about him. So, is it just the fact that he thinks he's too good for the OHL, and he's just too arrogant, saying, I don't need this league, I'm too good for this league, why am I not playing up in the NHL? And I think it might be that. And then he comes up to the NHL, and he's going to stay quiet, he's going to listen to his coaches, because we know he doesn't do that in the OHL, and he's going to thrive. So, I don't know, I think it's just he thinks he's too high of a skill level for the OHL, and once he gets to the big club, he might change.
I mean, you get drafted 1st overall in the OHL draft, your head's going to grow.
Your ego's going to blow up.
Yeah, and then you get...
Was he taken as a 15-year-old? Did he have...
He didn't know. He didn't have exceptional status.
He was taken as... Okay.
No, he was taken just at the regular draft. And then, so you play and you dominate the league after coming 1st overall. Your head is going to be massive. And then to be told that you're a top 15 pick, I'm sure it grew a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
And then to get picked in the first round.
At the start of his draft year, most people saw him as a top 5 prospect going into that draft. And then every month it seemed he went down 5 picks.
Yeah, pretty much. And then San Jose took a chance with him, didn't let him drop into the 2nd round. And I can't fault San Jose for that. If you have a player of his caliber and you say, we can probably deal with this guy and we can fix him.
What better team, though, to deal with attitude issues in San Jose?
And that's what I was going to bring up. They have Evander Kane. They seem to settle down Evander Kane.
And he's shut up since he's been there.
Yeah, Evander Kane had some serious issues with Winnipeg/Atlanta and, Buffalo, and everything seems to be going good now. We got a nice extension, and it seems fine.
Yeah.
So.
And I know a lot when we watched that draft, and we were waiting for him to go because he was definitely the most intriguing prospect, just because no one knew was he going to go the first night, was he going to go into the second day, no one really knew. I think we kind of had an idea that he was never going to fall out of the first round.
No,
someone from 20 to 30 was definitely going to take a chance on him. But I remember Brian Burke saying, he said at least half the teams in the NHL, so 15, had him on the do not draft list. So when a team, for those of you who don't know, and it's pretty self-explanatory, for those of you who don't know what do not draft means, it just doesn't mean don't draft him in the first round. It means don't draft him for the whole draft. Like, if he's still there at the very last pick, don't draft him. 15 teams said that about him. So that definitely says something towards the attitude. But if one team's going to fix it, San Jose, to me, is definitely that team that can do it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have 10 junior scouts and you're going through your draft, that's 10 lists you have, and every single list is going to be different. I mean, they're probably going to be similar for the most part, but every single one is going to be slightly different. And sometimes by the time your pick comes, every single list is gone, and you're picking. I like to look back at New Jersey. New Jersey had the 17th pick a few years ago, and Ty Smith falls into your lap. You have to pick him. It doesn't matter where every other player is. Or if you go
the year that Toronto took Timothy Liljegren.
Yeah.
Who was regarded as the second overall prospect in the draft, got mono, didn't play, and fell to Toronto at 16.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Those 10 lists, he might not have been the player you take there, but if he's still there, you have to take him. And that's really all there is. You have to pick a player. All right. Do you have anything else?
Just a few little things. So, a signing just an hour ago. A guy who was at Calgary as a PTO got a contract. Toby Reeder signed.
Oilers sniper.
What is it?
Edmonton Oilers sniper.
Yeah, big sniper. Big goal scorer. He gets a 1-year, 2-way deal worth the league minimum, $700K. Good depth move for Calgary.
Part of me hopes he only scores against Edmonton.
Hopefully he can double how many goals he got last year. I mean, that would probably be really good production.
Yeah. Some high numbers.
High numbers for sure.
Calgary also signed somebody a few weeks ago in a nice cheap contract.
Who was that?
Magdapane.
Oh, yeah, Magdapane got the 1 year. I think he got league. He got $750 though. Yeah. And some QMJHL news. No surprise here. Sidney Crosby's number 87 is going to be retired. League wide, I think it says. From the 2020-21 season on, it will officially retire the number of Sidney Crosby. So no one after that season will be able to wear 87 in the QMJHL.
I don't know why anybody would want to wear 87. It's such an odd number.
Not just that. Can you ever live up to 87 playing in the QMJHL?
I don't know who that is, though. So, what does it matter? I mean... Who were they retiring? I never heard of them.
Okay, yeah.
What do you think about them retiring numbers league-wide? Is there any players that you think should be forever retired, like numbers?
In the QMJHL?
I just mean in any league in general. Like, is there any players, like, do you see, like, if even for the Q, do you think they'd ever retire Fleury's 29 league-wide?
No.
No?
No. I think...
We have it here in Sydney retired.
Yeah, we have it. Cape Breton retired his number. I think they already have Connor McDavid's number retired in Erie, but it's not league-wide. Maybe down the road when he's at the same stage as his career as Sidney Crosby. Because it's not like Crosby was in the QMJHL 5 years ago.
No.
He's not Sid the Kid anymore.
No, he's a 32-year-old man.
Yeah. So maybe... It's definitely a surprise. I don't really know. I think he might be the only one.
That I know of.
In
maybe Mario Lemieux. Maybe Lemieux has his
Maybe Lemieux. I can't think of any others. The league-wide thing kind of surprises me. I understand it with Rimouski, but the league-wide thing kind of surprises me. I don't know. It's something different. I mean, he's probably been the best player the Q's ever seen. Mm-hmm. Or did Mario Lemieux play in the Q?
Mario Lemieux played in the Q.
Okay, so maybe the second best.
He had some very, very good numbers.
Yeah, this is the second best.
Second best, yeah. Well, I mean, I think Guy Lafleur also played in there, I believe.
Yeah, see, I don't think we were alive around that time,
not,
so I can't remember everything.
I just say that speaking of, he had some surgery yesterday.
Yes.
And as of right now, it all went well, so we hope the best wishes for that.
Probably the best Montreal Canadiens still alive.
Yeah, more than likely. It's a very good estimate to say. All right, anything from you?
No, just those last two little things that had just came up in the last little bit. That's it.
All right, this is it for episode 2 of the Over the Boards podcast. Thanks for listening, guys.